The other day, Sayadaw concluded speaking about the 9 causes for sharpening the ruling faculties, the Indriyas. For beings, more important than ruling other people, gaining control over other people, is ruling oneself, controlling oneself. And if one doesn't have any practical knowledge of how to rule, how to control, then one won't be able to do it. So one has to know the method for developing this capability. And that was explained by the Buddha. And according to Mahasi Sayadaw's instruction of what the Buddha taught, Sayadaw has explained this at this time because it is important. And today he will bring everything together, combine everything that he spoke about. Most people of the world do not have this very important knowledge of how to rule themselves, and so they cannot control their behavior. And therefore, there are many problems that arise in the world that are difficult to solve. Individuals become enemies with each other. One group and another become enemies. One country against another. The whole world becomes at odds with everyone else. So it's so difficult that it's impossible to bring people together. It's very difficult to bring people together. And this is because individuals do not have the ability to control themselves. If one can control one's behavior, then for the most part, social problems will not arise or will be very minimal. If even half the people in the world could control themselves, the world would be quite peaceful. But now, not even 1/2 of the world is able to do this. About 1/4 of the world's population is able to control themselves, has some knowledge of how to do this. But when this is only based on reflection and not based on practical experience, as Sayadaw has been explaining, then this type of control is nothing special. Sayadaw said previously that all beings are just a combination of elements, just made up of elements. And what we mean by this, that they're a combination of elements, there's just the base, the striker and the spark. The sense base, the striker, and the spark. And if one examines what we are, what beings are, there's just these, which are just dhammas. They're just empty phenomena. If one subtracts the base, the striker, and the spark, without that there's nothing left. There's no self, there's no atta, no soul, no supreme being. What is there is just the base, the striker, and the spark, just Dhamma, just phenomena. So we practice the method to know this, to know what we are, and this knowledge arises. And when knowledge arises, one acknowledges the truth of what one has seen directly. And as one's knowledge develops stage by stage, one acknowledges again and again the truth of what one sees. And this is faith. This is faith and confidence. So if true faith like this arises, then what follows is the courage to avoid following the wrong path and the courage to undertake the right path. This becomes strong. This is virya, effort, and this is very important. And the sati, the mindfulness which follows virya, to the extent one follows the right path, with virya, sati will follow. And following this too is the mind meets exactly with the object, is collected on the object, and knowledge arises further. So these arise in oneself, sati, virya, sati, samadhi, panya, and then faith, which acknowledges what one has seen. So when this cycle happens, at this stage one is able to govern oneself. To the extent that one develops knowledge, one is able to control oneself. The practice is in order to keep oneself from going wrong by developing the true power to govern oneself. As Sayadaw just said, these three elements, there are these three elements, the base, the sense base, the sense object striker, and the spark. These dhammas, they come to an end. They dissolve. Although this hasn't yet become apparent to one hasn't come to know it directly. One knows in theory that sankharas, compound conditions, conditioned phenomena, arise and then pass away. They begin and they end. One has to know this theoretically and have confidence, have faith in it. That means to say that one should not try to oppose this idea. If one really looks and sees, if one establishes the basis of moral purity, sila visuddhi, develops mental purity, citta visuddhi, one will come to see the difference between mind and matter. One will come to know how they are related as cause and effect. How mind and matter, which are related as cause and effect, arise and then pass away. The old always being replaced by the new without a break. So if one reaches this stage, one has full faith that this is so. One no longer resists the idea. But one has to have faith that this is so to begin with. And one should have the objective, first of all, to see this. In one's stream of existence, the mind and matter that is in one's body arises and passes away. One has heard this theoretically, or one has reflected on it. But just this theoretical knowledge is not enough to see how phenomena arise and then pass away. When we see a plate of food in front of us, we can guess what it tastes like, but we do not know. However, when we put the food in our mouth and chew, when we take the liquid and drink it, then we will know the taste. If we don't chew, we won't know the taste of the food. So, in terms of theory, one knows that things arise and then pass away, but this knowledge is not practical. To know practically that this is so, one has to work respectfully in order to bring this about. And this is Sakkaja Kiriya. This also is important. The third cause is Santaja Kiriya. That is to work so that one moment of observation and another are continuous. That is to work constantly so that there's no gap. So that one moment and the next, one moment of observation and the next, are right next to each other. If these moments of observation are separated, then they'll be weak. But if they occur right next to each other, if they're together, like they're stuck together, then amazingly strong energy will be produced. To develop the powers of bhavana, of the meditative mind, that is the power of faith, of virya, sati, samadhi, panya, the ruling powers. To know these, to create them in oneself, there needs to be constant application of the practice. There shouldn't be any hesitation. There shouldn't be any waiting. If one reflects, asking, what is it? Why is it? How is it? If this type of reflection arises, there's no way that one will be able to go further. One will not be able to develop knowledge. Also, one can't back off. There shouldn't be any backing off. One should always go forward with momentum, and only then will Vipassana knowledge occur in your being. The fourth cause for the ruling faculties to arise is to work in a suitable way. And that means that certain factors need to be suitable, like the place of meditation, avasa. This should be a suitable place. And where one goes for food and drink, this should also be suitable. That means that, for yogis who don't go on alms round, this means that one should avoid places which cause the kilesas to arise. So one has to select the places where one goes. And one should hear suitable Dhamma. And one should rely on a good spiritual friend who is really able to teach the Dhamma, combining theory and practice. Then one's food and drink also should be suitable, and the weather should be not too cold, not too hot. And one's posture, the four main postures, the four major postures of walking, standing, sitting, lying down. One should know which posture to use when. One should know which posture is most suitable for one to develop the practice. When one becomes skilled in the practice, then one is able to practice in all the postures. So with the help of a teacher, relying on the help of a teacher, the Vipassana and these suitable things just mentioned, then the Vipassana knowledge, which has not yet arisen, can arise. And the Vipassana knowledge, which has arisen but has not yet matured, can become more mature. The fifth cause is samadhi-sacha nimitta gahina. By remembering one's past experience of samadhi. Collectedness of mind is very important, samadhi. When we apply effort, ardent effort, and accurate aim to observe the object, time and again, moment by moment, to collect the mind, this is samadhi, the mind becoming collected on the object. So first, we have to develop the skill. We have to practice. And then, as we do it again and again, our effort is right, our aim is accurate, and sati sticks to the object. So at that time, momentary concentration arises, khanika samadhi. So when our observation is exact, when we're observing the object precisely, then samadhi or concentration can occur continuously, sometimes for 1 minute, sometimes for 5 minutes. And these are the times when it's going well and it's good to note. The noting is good. But it doesn't stay that way. Sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. Like when we eat, sometimes the food is tasty and we enjoy it, and sometimes the food is not tasty, but we have to eat anyhow. So sometimes when we're eating food that doesn't taste so good, we remember the food that was good, and it's easier to eat the food. So in the same way, the yogi has to remember when it was and where it was that they gained good samadhi in the past. And when they remember this, then they can bring it to mind and help themselves to get the practice back on track. So this is what is meant by samadhi sacha nimitta gahena, remembering the hallmark of one's past good concentration. And one can also remember past methods that one used. When one is skilled, one becomes able to correct oneself. Similar to when one goes along a road, one travels a certain road again and again. One becomes familiar with it because of traveling it often. Whatever work it is that we're doing, at the start of our work, because we don't have momentum yet, there are ups and downs. And it's like this with practice also. Sometimes the mind is overexcited, and sometimes the mind is retracted and sluggish. So there are these extremes of being too excited and then being lazy or retracted. So when they're out of balance, when the mind is out of balance like this, then our observation, our noting is not regular anymore, and therefore knowledge doesn't arise. So we have to balance things out. Sometimes one's bhavana mind, this pure mind that we try to develop, sometimes it just doesn't go anywhere. It becomes slack. It's no longer keen. It's lax, slack. And at that time, laziness can come in. So then the yogi has to bring in factors like piti or joy. Joy makes the mind fresh. So we have to develop this quality, joyous interest. And we have to observe an object that makes the mind feel joyous interest. Another factor is ardent effort. One has to apply this to observe the object, and that overcomes the sluggishness. And also, one has to try to observe the details of the objects. One has to observe in a very meticulous way, investigating. And so then the sluggish mind will become quick, and the lazy mind will become alert again. So if the mind has become slack and lazy, then one needs to develop the factors of piti, joyous interest, or virya, effort, or investigation, Dhamma vidya. And the meditation teachers have to see the yogi's situation and advise the yogi at this time about how to correct. Sometimes yogis, because they experience good Dhamma They get happy. When they experience something they haven't experienced before, then this can happen. Like a child with a new toy or a new type of food, the child gets excited when they have this type of thing. And the yogi also. Sometimes they encounter a happiness that he or she didn't experience before. Or there can be a very special type of happiness that one doesn't want to let go of. So when this type of happiness arises, the yogi becomes elated, very excited, and can't control themselves. And then the mind misses the object. So at this time, the yogi has to note in a very tranquil way, very calm, very balanced way. Just to be very balanced in this application of this calmness, tranquility, balance, this will bring things back to, it will make the mind calm down. As now, when practicing the high-level Dhamma, to get a guarantee for our life, practicing the way to become a true human, to keep our mentality humane, and although we are humans with human intelligence, to develop special knowledge. In practicing to do this, we can't do it in a comfortable way. We can't do it casually. When we things that we gain through just easygoing work have no value. What can be done easily is not valuable. So if something is valuable, if we're doing a work that brings us something valuable, then we shouldn't have thoughts about the pain we might experience or dying. We shouldn't have any regard for life or limb. We should go all out in the practice. No one has died from the practice or become injured or sick from doing it. If one favors oneself, if one favors one's body, then one won't work in order to gain special Dhamma. If one favor oneself, then one's life will only be painful. And then, because of having consideration for oneself, one won't make the effort to keep one's sila cleanly. And one won't make the effort to develop a clean mind. And much less so will one try to develop knowledge. So in practicing to be a true human being, to develop a humane mentality, and to develop special human knowledge, this is something that can't be done with ordinary effort. One has to go, one has to go all out, and therefore it's said in the text, Kayeja jiviteja anapekatang upataheti, that one should establish disregard for life and limb. So if one does, can establish this disregard and just go all out, go all out in the practice, then one will get something which is valuable. One should have this attitude. Pain arises unavoidably, aches, itching, tension. These things always arise in the practice. So when, due to causes, discomfort, painful feelings arise, don't back off, don't retreat. Increase your effort. Fill up your energy and observe with effort. Not with the intention to get rid of the pain, but with the intention to know it. And as one observes, then one observes as much as one can. If one can't bear it, then one lets go of it and returns to the rising and the falling. And then when it comes back again, one notes it, observes it some more. When one can't continue, one goes back to the rising and falling or to another object. And so one goes back and forth. As one does this, one builds up one's stamina for observing the pain. And as one's energy builds, one reaches the point when one no longer has any sense of what is aching, where it is aching. There's just the pain and just the mind which knows it. That's all. Just those two things. And then one has stamina in observing the pain, and one even finds it good to observe the pain when it's like this. So at this point, one's sati has been become very good because of observation of the pain. So if one wants to know this, if one wants to know how pain arises, if one wants to know the pain, then whenever there's an ache, something uncomfortable, don't change your posture. Don't open your eyes, but just observe it with determination. And don't have regard for your life or your limb. It's not enough if we just get to the point of being able to overcome the discomfort that arises in one's body when we meditate. This is not enough. We should establish a goal. In the world also, we set goals for ourselves. And without an objective, without a goal, then life is meaningless. So in this work where we are working to become a true human, to develop a humane mentality, and to develop special human knowledge, to establish a firm goal is important. And Sayadaw feels that one should establish the goal of at least realizing the first stage of enlightenment, of becoming the first kind of Arya, noble person. Or one should establish the goal of being a true human, to be able to have a humane mentality. And even though one has human intelligence, to develop special human knowledge. Otherwise, one's work is not meaningful. So one should be determined not to leave the center until one reaches one's goal. Of course, if something important comes up and you can't, and you have to address it, then that can't be helped. One has to go and do that thing. But if one doesn't manage to return to the practice and then dies, then one's next life will not be assured. One's future life will not be certain. So if you believe in a next life, then you should work until you reach an assured situation where your situation is definite. Of course, there are some people who do not believe in a future existence, but in that case, one should simply understand that to do this work is good, and if in fact there is a next life, you're ready for it. So, before your development of the Dhamma is firm and certain, don't leave the retreat. And if you make this resolution that I'm not going to leave until I reach my goal, before long, samadhi and panya will arise. They will arise quickly. So people who have come to this 60-day retreat, who have worked respectfully, with continuity, meticulous care, people can gain the special Dhamma in this time. However, Sayadaw has heard that there are some people who do not work systematically according to the instructions, and who have not developed concentration even yet. So for such people, if they come back to practice again without any change in how they work, they will not be able to develop the practice. So but if one has the attitude that one wants to develop these powers, the power of faith, the power of virya, sati, samadhi, panya, to develop these powers which give us the ability to control ourselves. If one has the attitude that one wants to do this and one works respectfully, one can develop these. So Sayadaw urges you all and hopes that you will all be able to apply effort to bring these 5 Dhammas, these ruling powers, to full development. That's all for today.